winner. Hey, this is Coach JC, and I do want to welcome you to another Win All Day podcast show. Man, I am super stoked today. I have a special guest in, a great friend of mine. It's going to be a life-changing show. We're going to talk about personal development. We're going to talk about coaching. But hey, you know what time it is. If you are a frequent listener, it is time for our Win All Day winning confession. If it's your first time, you got to repeat after me. We believe at Win All Day and in what we do that you cannot walk out a winning life if you're speaking defeat and losing words. There are power in your words. So this is your time to confess those things in your life. So repeat after me. Today is my day. Nothing will get in my way of me being the best version of me. I am here on purpose. I have a purpose. I am strong. I am passionate. I am fearless. I choose faith. I was born a winner. I will win and win all day. Yes, you were born a winner. And after this show, you are going to be winning more and winning all day. Guys, I just brought him on the screen. You can see this beautiful, amazing, young, vibrant, talented individual. This is my good friend, Mr. Zander Fryer. What's going on, brother?
Dude, I'm juiced, man. That got me going.
Come on, brother, man. I'm so excited. I'm so stoked, man. I am excited to have you a guest on the Win All Day podcast show. And I know that you're going to be a tremendous blessing for people watching today. I'll never forget when we met. We were actually at a mastermind out in California. And, I just remember because, I think I was just attracted to you when I heard you speak about life coaching and personal development and how you left corporate America and just your story. Man, it really resonated with me. We have similar backgrounds in kind of what we've done and following our passion, our purpose. And man, I don't want to do you a disservice, man. You're doing amazing things. You're changing the world that you were called to change. CEO and founder of High Impact Coaching. And you're showing coaches how to really grow and scale, successful online businesses based around coaching. But I would love for you to do this, man. I would love for you just to take the next few minutes, Zander, and just introduce yourself. Where do you come from? What's your backstory? And how did we get to where we are today, brother?
Well, that's a great question. So kind of like you mentioned, I'll start with today and then we'll work our way backwards. So, kind of like you mentioned, so CEO and founder of High Impact Coaching, my coaching company. It's a multi-million-dollar coaching company where we help coaches build profitable businesses. I'm the host of the Shit You Don't Learn in College iTunes Top Podcast, and we're coming out with my book, which I can't say yet is a bestseller, but it will be a bestseller. So my book, Shit You Don't Learn in College, of the same name, coming out with that soon. But yeah, kind of like you mentioned, like it all started with, me kind of living the proverbial American life, what everybody says, go to college. I was really good at math and sciences in high school. So, I went to UCLA, got an engineering degree, ended up going and joining the corporate world, worked for Cisco Systems, if anybody knows Cisco, for 5 or 6 years. I can't even remember how long it was anymore. But I legitimately had what like everybody would consider success, right? Like I was making, while I was in the corporate world, I was a kid in his mid-20s. I was making over $200,000 a year. I had clients like Facebook, Disney, NBC, Verizon. I had key accounts. So, kid in his mid-20s, driving a BMW, flying around the country, first class, living in Venice Beach. Like I really had what, everybody would have told me was success. And like, for the first 25, 26 years of my life, that's what I was building towards. And then when I had it, I was like always feeling a little bit empty, and I would get a raise or I'd get a promotion and I'd feel great. It'd be this sharp peak of joy real quickly. But then right afterwards, it was just this like dull, like hunger for like, is this really it? Like, is this all my life is meant to be? Just like, keep doing the work, paying the bills, like, and I was searching to fill this hole. And it wasn't until, I had a conversation with a mentor of mine. I was 27 at the time, and a mentor of mine who was an entrepreneur and was making 7 figures as a health and wellness entrepreneur. And he asked me a question. He said, Zander, you could do a lot of things in your life. What would you do if you couldn't fail? Wow. And yeah, powerful question. And I think, it's interesting because like looking back on that, I think a lot of us have been asked some of these, similar questions like that, critical thinking, deep questions like that. And if you allow a deep question like that to change your life, it can and it will, right? And so when he asked me that, he said, Zander, what would you do if you couldn't fail? And I said, well, that's pretty easy. I used to be an Air Force ROTC. And I was actually going to be a pilot in the Air Force, until I got a DUI my senior year. So that's a whole nother story for another time, but I was actually going to fly fighter jets.
A DUI driving a car or an airplane?
Not an airplane, driving a car. But I had 3 beers. And got pulled over and blew a .09, and that killed my entire Air Force career. So I had, the next 20 years of my life planned there.
Which had to happen, bro. It was all part of your story.
It's all part of the story. And this is like, this is one of my favorite things though, right? It's like, I look back on that DUI and I remember sitting in that drunk tank, that jail cell, right? And full well knowing that I had just destroyed my career in the Air Force.
Wow.
Right. And I was a kid, I was 21 years old. Right. So of course I'm sitting in this drunk tank, just bawling my eyes out because I just destroyed my dream of flying planes. Yeah. Right. And I remember fighting with myself because I was so upset and I was so sad. But deep down, there was a part of me that was like, this is happening for a reason. And I wanted to believe it. Intellectually, my intellect fought it on every single measure. But deep down, there was part of me that was just reminding me like, hey, Zander, like this is happening for a reason. You don't know it yet and you won't know it. Right. But dude, like whatever it is, 12 years in the future now, like I look back and I'm like, holy shit, like there's no way that I could have ever like imagined that like I had to get that DUI to be where I am now. Like it couldn't have happened any other way. So that's always just a big reminder for me. It's like whenever we go through this tough shit, like to always have that belief that it's happening for you, not to you. And you're not going to see why. You're not going to see how it happened for you while you're in the thick of it. Right. And there's so many things in my story, and we'll hit a few more of them as we keep going. But there's so many things in my story that I'm like, while it's happening, I'm like, what the fuck? Like there's no way that this is happening for me. Right. And it made me question everything in life, my beliefs, my faith, my everything in life. Yeah. But as I move forward, I'm like, okay, I get it now. Right. And so, I think that was a big moment for me, but moving kind of forward, obviously went through the corporate world, had my mentor ask me this one big question: what would you do if you couldn't fail? Wow. And I told him, I was like, honestly, ever since I left the Air Force, the one thing I've been missing the most is mentoring and teaching others. I make great money at Cisco, but that's the one thing that's missing. And he goes, well, why don't you do that full time? And I laughed. I was like, what, like be Tony Robbins or something like that? Like, I don't even know what that means. Right. And he's like, well, why don't you go figure it out? I was like, well, and then obviously the logic takes over. Right. The intellect takes over. Well, I've got this amazing job at Cisco. I'm going to be one of the youngest directors in recent history. I don't want to miss out on that momentum. And I got really lucky because I had a mentor that was just blunt and to the point. Yeah. Right. And I came off as this really cocky, confident kid. And he basically just said, Zander, just because there's a path laid out in front of you, does that mean you should walk it? And just because you're good at something, does that mean you should do it? And it really started me thinking. He goes, Zander, when you get to my age, you realize a couple of things. Number one, the one resource you'll never get back is your time.
Come on.
And number two, every moment is either on purpose or off purpose.
Come on.
And every moment off purpose is a moment wasted. And those two principles, the principle that we can never get back our time and every moment off purpose is a moment wasted, just cut through all the bullshit like a razor sharp scalpel and hit me straight in the heart. And he goes, Zander, you know the difference between you and me? I go, well, you make a shit ton more money than I do. And he said, dude, the only difference between you and me is I had the courage to go after my dreams and you're just dreaming yours.
Come on.
And for someone who was so quote unquote confident and cocky in their mid-20s and seemed to have all the success, he saw straight through the bullshit and saw that I was just a scared little kid to go after what I really, really wanted deep down. So I remember having that conversation. That was on a Saturday, and it may have been fueled by a little bit of tequila. And Sunday, I could not stop thinking about that conversation. Monday morning, I went into my work, and it was virtual at that time because I worked for Cisco. So that first, I had a meeting from 8 to 9 with the Disney team. And I remember by the end of that meeting, I'm thinking I'm never going to get that hour back. And then 9 to 10 with the engineering team and thinking, I'm never going to get that hour back. Then 10 to 11 with the NBC team. I'm never going to get that hour back. 11 to 12 with the sales team. I'm never going to get that hour back. So by lunchtime, I'm thinking, I just lost a full morning of my life that I will never get again.
Wow.
And I called my manager and I said, Frank, I'm done. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea where I was going. Frank goes, dude, who gave you an offer? Where are you going? Which one of our competitors? I was like, nobody. He's like, well, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know, but I know that it's not this.
Yep.
And that was how I quit my job. I quit my job because I didn't have clarity on what I was doing. I just had clarity that what I was currently doing was not it. And every moment that I wasted not trying to figure, quote unquote, it out was a moment gone.
Wow.
So that's how I quit.
Man, bro, you said, I'm taking some notes. You said so many powerful things there, Zander. First of all, thank you for being transparent. And here's the deal. Anybody that listens to this show, they know I'm a very deep individual. I hate surface talk. Anybody that knows me, like, don't ask me how the weather is. Don't ask me about a football game. Like, I'm going to go deep on you. Sometimes people see me and they'll like turn and avoid me because they know JC's going to ask me tough questions, because I love that about life. And I love that your story got you where you are. And you said something that I want to start with. The first thing that I think people need to understand today is, you were talking about your book earlier, and you said it will be a bestseller. Yeah. Right. And little triggers like that are little things that changed my life. And we did that winning confession in the beginning. Right. Yeah. So I want to ask you that really quick, because I know there's people listening or watching today, and you know how their perspective and their viewpoint of life and their belief system of they are such in a state of hoping and wishing. Right. Yeah. When did you and how did you were able to create that certainty to on camera say, my book's not released yet, but it will be a bestseller? And I think so many times in life we hope and wish and we dream, right? And there's so many people that they know deep down inside it's never going to make it a reality. And that belief system absolutely kills and demolishes their dreams. So for you, how were you able and when did you shift from hoping and wishing to an absolute certainty? This is how it will be. I will be a bestseller. Talk to us a little about that and motivate that person on the other side. I think that's a great question, right? And I think it all stems for me from a belief that I have. And to be honest, my book's called Shit You Don't Learn in College, right? But the one thing that I did learn in college as an engineer is that everything is figure outable. Right. So, I tell people like, everybody's always like, Zander, like, does it upset you that you don't use your electrical engineering degree anymore? And I'm like, well, not really, because like one of the things that it taught me, like to be an engineer, you take a problem and you figure it out. Right. And so the belief that I built in college and, probably well before that as well, is that everything is figure outable. And because of that, everybody always asks like, Zander, like, what if it didn't work for you? What if you couldn't figure it out? And my response is always like, well, if I focus on growing and I don't quit, what's the only outcome? Success, right? It will happen at some point. Most people have it in their mind. Like a lot of people believe that they can't grow and become better. You guys, I was an engineer. I was a perfection paralysis person. Now I'm an entrepreneur that moves forward, makes decisions fast, shakes the world, like does shit that I would have never dreamed of 5 years ago. Yeah. Like you as a person can change. This is by far one of the most beautiful things about the human race, is that if you woke up tomorrow, you could decide to be a confident, decisive action taker and achieve all of your dreams. All you have to do is decide it, and you will immediately start to shift your brain. Right. And so all I knew, I didn't know how to build a business. I didn't know how to do what I wanted. All I knew was, number one, I was willing to learn and grow. Like when I quit my job, number one, I was willing to learn and grow. Number two, I didn't have the option of quitting. I didn't have the option of doing anything else. Now, I didn't have any guarantees to how long it would take. Yep. I didn't have any guarantees to how much work I would have to put in. I didn't have any guarantees of the obstacles that I would face as I went down that path, which some of them were
incredibly crazy, right? Like, and you know this, but like my best friend committed suicide during the first few months of me doing that process and sent me into a deep, dark depression during that first year, right? There's no way that I could have predicted any of this stuff. But the simple fact that I knew, number one, I would not quit. And number two, I could learn anything that I needed to learn. Well, it makes it a pretty easy decision then, right? Like I just have to go do the damn thing. Now, you go do that enough, right? And you start with smaller things. Obviously, you know, the first big quote unquote like risk I ever took was not me quitting my 9-to-5 job and then like going after my dream, right? Started off when I was a kid, you know, taking risks on the soccer field or taking risks with, you know, like whatever it was, testing out different things. I always tell people, everyone's like, dude, Zander, where did you get all this wisdom? I'm like, I broke a lot of shit growing up. Yeah. Like I messed up a lot of stuff. And I realized very quickly, none of them actually killed me. So you start to realize very quickly, well, if it's not going to kill me, if I can grow and I'm not going to quit, there's only one outcome. So I can be certain in the outcomes that I go after, because if I really commit myself to going after them, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep focusing on growing, and it's not going to kill me. Most likely it's not going to kill me. We'll see. Maybe one day I'll do something that does actually kill me, but I'm not like, you know, Alex Honnold trying to climb El Capitan with no rope or something like that, right? We're just building a business here, right? So it's not actual life or death situations.
Yeah. You know, and so let's talk about this for a second. Like, I think that's super powerful, because there's a lot of people that they try, and I'm big on mindset, man. Like I wrote a book on it, and, you know, creating the winning mindset formula. And I love that. And I think the mindset's absolutely crucial. But I think you said something I think is powerful. Sometimes you have to do even before you even believe, right?
100%.
I think you took that leap of faith. And I think there's somebody on the other side right now, and they're like, I see it all the time. They're paralyzed and they're worried of fear of failing. And human beings, we always magnify the worst things. Like we always create this imagination of what it can't be rather than what it could be. So talk to that person where I think powerful what you did is you said, I don't know it all. I'm not sure how it's all going to work out. I don't know all the pieces. I see something that might happen, but I'm just going to take the leap of faith and I'm going to do. How did you do that? Like, what's some practical steps you said, you know what, I've just got to do this? Like, what were some of the things that you did at that time?
I think you kind of hit on one of them at first, and you said the word faith, right? I think the word faith can be taboo and gets thrown around a lot, but the reality is, right, when you're specifically as entrepreneurs, right? Like, let's you and me be honest. Entrepreneurship is batshit crazy. It is illogical. It does not make sense. Like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to do illogical, right? So to some degree, you have to have faith that you have to have some form of faith that you will be successful. And so at the very beginning, you know, in your creed, in your what'd you call it?
The creed, the winning confession.
The confession, yeah. In your creed, you said, I choose faith, right? And that is a choice, right? It is not something that you're just born with. You choose to have faith that good will prevail, that God will, you know, take care of you, whatever it might be. I tell people, like, I think I may have just watched too many Disney movies growing up. So I always follow the hero's journey. And I know that, like, okay, when you're in the very deep, dark pits of despair, right? Like Luke Skywalker comes out the other side, Simba makes it back. Like, you know, Aladdin comes back and gets the girl, right? Like, so you always win when you look down at the end of the story. So when you're in the pit of despair, you kind of like, okay, cool. Like I'm in the point of the hero's journey where it sucks, but I can smile because I know after this, I come out the other side. Right. And so I think that faith is a huge part of it. And I think, you know, frankly, I think it's something that's not talked about very enough in the entrepreneurial space. But for you to be successful as an entrepreneur, you have to have faith. And, you know, for some people that's religion, for some people it's spirituality, for some people it's they just watched too many Disney movies when they were growing up. It doesn't matter. You have to have faith that it will turn out, like, good overcomes evil. Yeah. Right. So I think that's the first one. And then I think the second part is, you know, kind of what you mentioned. It's like, I always tell people, you know, a lot of people think, and they're taught by a lot of self-improvement, a lot of gurus out there, like, belief comes first. Right. And to some extent it does. Right. But it's kind of a chicken or the egg situation. Right. Because if you have strong beliefs, it will create actions. Well, if you can also just go create an action without the belief. Yeah. And then it creates a new belief. Right. So, I always tell people, like the example I give is, when I was a kid, I wanted to jump off the high dive, and I'm scared. To this day, I'm scared of heights. I'm scared of a lot of shit. I'm scared of spiders. I live like right on the edge of the Pacific Ocean, and I go out in the ocean all the time. I'm scared shitless of sharks, and I know I'm not going to be bitten. But like every time I look down into the waters, I'm like, oh fuck, shark. Like it's gonna happen. But I do it anyways, right? So when I was young, I got up on top of the high dive. I was like 10 years old, and I wanted to jump off the high dive. And in my mind is racing, right? Like you're going to fall off this thing and you're going to break a leg, and then you're going to drown, or you're going to look foolish and you don't know how to swim very well. So then you're going to drown and everybody's going to laugh at you. Like all these things going through my head as I'm at the top of that high dive. Now, if belief comes first, right, then I should probably have climbed down off that high dive and gone to my dad and said, Dad, can you take me to therapy so that I can go fix this belief and this fear of jumping off the high dive? Did that happen? No, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard, right? What did I do? I'm on top of that high dive and I jumped. I jumped anyways. I did the damn thing, right? Because I knew that the stories going on in my head were just lies. They were all bullshit lies that were not real. So I just jumped anyway. I jump off the high dive. I hit the water. I'm exhilarated. I climb out. That was the most fun thing I had ever done in my life up to that point.
Do it again.
New belief. Oh my God, jumping off the high dive doesn't kill you. It's a blast. Go right back up, jump off again, back up. I probably jumped off that high dive 30 times in the next hour, right? Why did that come? I didn't go change the belief. I did the damn thing. I did the one thing that scared me. So, one of the things that I tell everybody, when I first started, so I quit my job and I invested heavily in myself in mentorship and coaching, put myself in about $25,000 worth of debt over the course of the first 3 months, but got a 6-figure coaching business up within about 4 months and turned that into a 7-figure coaching business within about 12 months. Now, we're bridging on 4 to 5 million. I've got a team of, I don't even know anymore, 17, and we're working with, a couple hundred clients at any one period in time. But I go back to that first year because it was so pivotal for me where I knew exactly like you mentioned, JC, I didn't actively focus on like doing mindset work all the time. Instead, what I focused on is every day doing one thing that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, huge.
So I called it my big cojones action because it required huge cojones. But literally every single morning for 365 days, for an entire year, every morning, I would ask myself, what's the one thing that scares me the most right now? And I didn't work on how to overcome the belief. I just did the thing. So I'll give you some examples because some of them are terrifying. So for example, like I mentioned, a lot of them were like, the first one or one of the first ones was actually, I quit my job. I loved Jack Canfield's books when I was growing up and going through like Chicken Soup for the Soul and going through like success principles. So the first thing I did, my first big cojones action, literally, like the first one I did, I Googled Jack Canfield phone number and I called his office.
Come on.
Right? That was the first one I did. I was like, what if I just get a hold of the guy? Oh my God, I did. Right? So I got on with his director of operations. I said, hey, my name's Zander Fryer. I just quit my job. Can I come hang out with you guys? And 30 minutes later, I'm chatting with her. Then I'm talking to the CEO, Patty Aubrey. Then I'm on the phone with Jack. 45 minutes later, I have a flight out to Arizona to go spend the next 2 weeks with them.
Come on.
Right? That was my first big cojones action. Another big cojones action, about 3 months into the business, at this point, I'm about $20,000 in debt and I'm not making a dime in my business. I had launched, at this point, I got clear that I wanted to be a life coach. Yeah. I'd launched the business. I'm not making anything. And I got an offer from a Cisco partner where they basically said, because I had worked with such high-level clients, they said, Zander, if we can just put your name on our books and you'll work 10 hours a week making introductions to your contacts at Facebook and NBC and Disney, we'll pay you 10 grand a month for it, right? And I'm in debt at this point. I don't know how I'm going to pay my next rent bill because I'm not making any money. That job looked awfully appetizing. I had the contract in hand. And I remember asking myself, am I doing this out of fear or am I doing this out of purpose? And I thought, damn, this is my big cojones action for the day, isn't it? Mm. And I ripped up that contract.
Wow.
The next 2 weeks, I made $13,000 in my coaching business and I was able to start paying off my debt. But I had to make that big cojones action. Now, not all of my big cojones actions turned out that well.
Yeah.
right? But the point was, the point is like some of them, one of them was, the biggest thing that was scaring me was like, I knew as I started to do all this personal development, I was so clear that I had ruined a past relationship of mine with a great girl, right? About 2 years prior, I was dating a girl, for about 1.5 to 2 years, amazing girl. And I realized very quickly that I was the one that ruined that relationship. So I called her up and asked her for feedback on our relationship. That was one of the scariest things I did during that time period. It has nothing to do with business, but it was just one of those things I was like, this scares me so much that I have to do it. So I asked her, what were the good things about our relationship? What were the bad things about our relationship? How could I have been better? How was I in the bedroom? How was I in the sack? What could I have done? Like, are you kidding me? What kind of guy calls up an ex-girlfriend that he pissed off and asks them, how was I in bed? Right? But I learned so many things from that conversation. I swear to you, it is the reason that I am happily married to the woman of my dreams today, because I had that scary conversation. But that entire year, I did things like this every single day, that every single one of them not only like got results, but shifted who I was as a person.
Man, guys, if you're just joining us, we are talking about calling ex-girlfriends. We're talking about big kahunamus. We're talking about tequila. I mean, we're having a great conversation. Hey, that's so much wisdom in what you just said, man. And real talk. So first question is, do you still like tequila, and what's your favorite tequila? Is it Blanco, Mezcal, Anejo? What is it?
That's a great question. I do still love tequila. I'm kind of a reposado gal. I'm a reposado gal. My favorite tequila is actually, it's a clear filtered anejo. It's called Casa Dragones.
All right.
So Casa Dragones has a Blanco and they have a clear filtered anejo. Their clear filtered anejo is unlike anything you've ever had. So if you're a tequila guy, go check it out.
There you go. And we're talking big kahunas, man. I think there's so many great things. We talked earlier about, obviously you left a job, right? Because you're having success without fulfillment. I think that's a motivator for a lot of people right now, Zander, that might be stuck. I think just that alone, them tuning in today, just the motivation of saying, hey, I need to be inspired. I need to borrow some of Zander's faith today to take that leap and no longer be stuck, showing up unsatisfied and unfulfilled. That if it worked out for him, maybe that's a faith I need to borrow at the moment and it'll work out for me. We talked about that powerful question that a mentor asked you, Zander, what would you do, or what could you do if you couldn't fail? Think about that question. What a powerful mindset shift to have a mentor in your life. And I want to move to that angle for a second, because you invested in mentorship. You invested, you were $25,000 in debt, 20 plus in debt. Me and you met at a mastermind. That's not a cheap mastermind.
Yeah.
You now coach. I got my whole start when I overcame what I overcame, and people said, what did you do? I discovered my purpose and my calling, and it was coaching. And I started life coaching and grew up a very successful business out of that. And we both coach for a living. So I want you to talk about that for a second, the importance of having a coach and a mentor in your life that maybe has been there, that has done it, but also that's doing it, how that changed your life, and how you are now coaching and carrying it over to change the lives of other people.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, to be honest, right? Your environments dictate your destiny, right? So period, end of statement. So if you're around environments that inspire you, promote you to take courageous action, help you think differently, ask you the critical questions that we're sharing on this call, you will end up in a different direction than if you're surrounded by people, information, media, all of those things that are not supportive, not helping you towards your goals. So it's very, very simple. Jim Rohn says you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? So you hang around 5 smokers, you're going to become the 6th. You hang around with 5 people who are stuck in 9-to-5s and unhappy and settling for a life that they never wanted, you're going to become the 6th, right? So, the biggest thing, and I've known this for a long time, because I was in Air Force ROTC, we were kind of spoon-fed self-development even there. I was reading John Maxwell leadership books and getting into Jack Canfield and that sort of stuff, even back when I was in college. And I tell people that to kind of tell you, like, that's where you start. You have to start just literally brainwashing your subconscious, right? So your subconscious is 95% of your brain. If that's mind-blowing to anybody, deal with it, right? You're actually only 5% of a real person. How's that feel?
Yeah.
Right? But that 95% you can program with that 5% conscious you can work on programming that 95%. So if you're not actively programming that 95%, guess who is? Mass media, society, politics, all these other things are programming that 95%, which will lead you down a path where you're like, why do I keep doing all this shit that makes me unhappy? Why do I keep doing all this shit that makes me unfulfilled, unsuccessful? No, it's because you missed the very first principle. Like, the part of your brain that leads to the majority of your outcomes is your subconscious. And if you're not actively learning how to cultivate the right things in it and weed out all the crap, you're screwed. So as soon as you realize that, it becomes a no-brainer, right? Like, I have to surround it's not a, oh, I might want to get a mentor. It's, I have to surround myself with mentors and people that are doing the shit that I want to do. Because if I don't, I'm screwed. There's no way. Imagine you have goals. I want everybody out there. Imagine you've got these goals, these big, crazy goals, and you've got 5 horses, and these are like thoroughbreds. These are like the cream of the crop. 5 horses, the top thoroughbreds in the world, right? And they're going to go racing towards those goals. Now, those 5 thoroughbreds are chained to 95 donkeys, and these could be the laziest, like, meaningless donkeys in the world, but those 95 donkeys are pointing the other direction. Who's going to win? The 5 thoroughbreds going towards your goals, or the 95 donkeys just sitting there on their asses? No pun intended. Yeah. The 95 donkeys, right? So if that 95% of your brain, you're not programming to be a thoroughbred, to take off towards your goals, you will always lose. So I always tell people, like, you got to do whatever it takes. In the beginning, listen to the Win All Day podcast, listen to the shit you don't learn in college podcast, grab our books, bombard your brain with good stuff, right? And then make it a priority to put yourself around those people. I would have never left my 9-to-5 had I not already been hanging out with people outside of the 9-to-5 world. I had a mentor who was an entrepreneur. I had friends of mine who were entrepreneurs that I hung out with regularly. So they fed me these thoughts and these ideas, and they would germinate. They would plant that seed in the subconscious, and it would germinate. And over time, it would get bigger and bigger until there was a point that I could no longer not do something about it. Right. And to this day, you mentioned, like, we met at a mastermind where, I think it was a 50 grand mastermind. I've now invested probably over $500,000 over the last 4 years in my own personal development, mentorship programs, being around people that inspire me. $500,000. Now that $500,000 has probably made me 10 million. Yeah. Right. But, when I first started, I could have very easily said, oh, I can't afford a mentor, or I can't afford to surround myself by these people. So the truth is, you can't not afford it, right? Like, you have to find a way to afford it, because as soon as you find a way to afford it, everything starts to change.
It's huge. I mean, there's so many powerful lessons in this episode, man, especially what you just said. And, it makes me think of, like, the winning confession, right? The mantra we said in the beginning. I didn't believe a word of that when I created that. Right? Yeah. I didn't believe a word of that when I said win all day. All I know is that my back was against the wall. It was do or die. I was in a desperate situation. I came out to Tulsa, Oklahoma from New Jersey, big goals and dreams to play basketball, threw away my story, ended up, young girl's pregnant, kid on the way, fighting to be a dad, then divorced, married, divorced, and suicidal, depressed, oppressed. And I started to just condition, we're talking about the subconscious mind. I started to just train my subconscious mind. Every word that we said earlier, when I created, I did not believe one word of it. Yep. Right. Yep. So I think one of the things is we all create stories for our life, right? Based around what we choose to believe, based around our experiences, what happened to us. And I think that the winning confession that we said earlier is one of the ways to be able to create faith. And we talked about faith earlier. Another way to create faith, even when you don't believe it, is what you said, jump off the diving board. Right? Just start doing. And another huge way, and I said it earlier, like, if you tuned in today, guys, and you're stuck, or you like, borrow our faith, borrow our hope right now from Zander, motivation from his story. And I think that's one of the greatest ways, is to put yourself in an environment where people are leveling up, where people are at a place where you want to be. I remember when I was stuck as a strength coach at Oral Roberts University, $400,000 debt, suicidal, showing up every single day with the weight of the world on my shoulders. Nobody had a clue. I'm drowning in life, and I was making $38,000, right? And I'm fighting to be a dad and trying to see my daughter and trying to create a new story. All I knew was basketball. And I remember when it clicked and I heard that same thing, you're going to become the 5 people you're around. And I just started saying, you know what, maybe I can't afford to go anywhere, but I'm going to listen to TD Jakes. I'm going to listen to Tony Robbins.
Yep.
I'm going to buy every book I could. And I'm going to start
in your ear, in your mind every day.
100%. 100%. And then I said, okay, if I want to make 100,000, I'm going to get around people that are making 100,000. If I want to have this, if I want to look this way in my spiritual life, if I want to be this way in a marriage, you know, I'm going to get around people that are successful. So I think those are such big moves that seem so simple that so many times people avoid and they never do. Zander, I just feel led to go here for a second, and I want to dive into coaching.
Sure.
You know, I think there's people listening right now, and you said something earlier about your DUI, right?
Yeah.
How it was a defining moment in your life. And it was a circumstance, a situation, the power of choice, right? You made a choice and put you in a situation that may have cost you one career, but it led you to where you are. And I think there's somebody listening right now that says, you know what? I'm living with guilt. I'm living with shame. I made decisions and choices that my back's up against the wall. And I know for a fact that, you know, you are a product of your past, but you know what? You'll continue to be a prisoner of it if you live there. So I want you to stay there just for one more minute, Zander, and talk to that person that says, man, my whole life right now is just based around the guilt and the shame I'm living with, because I don't have that perspective that it had happened to me, or it happened to me rather than for me. How did you come to that, Zander? What's the decision you made? Because right now I know my life is defined by the adversity, the obstacle, the storm, the trial, the thing that I'm going through or went through, and I just can't shake that, Zander. Coach JC, help me right now. What would you say to that person to shift their perspective right now so that they can create a breakthrough in their life and not be stuck?
So the biggest thing, and this may be where we're going with this. It may not. It may help you, but it may not. The biggest thing, you mentioned the word breakthrough, right? So, you know, one of the things that we teach a ton about, and obviously you get this, you understand it as well, but we have to teach a ton of people about this, specifically men, is how to actually create breakthroughs through our emotions, right? So if you're feeling guilt, regret, resentment, you've gone through some of this stuff, you've made huge mistakes. The first thing that I will tell you, and just like JC mentioned, like whether or not you want to believe it, I know it. You may want to believe it, but I actually know it for a fact. Everything that we go through, we have to go through to get to where we want to be. 100%. Right? So you may still be learning it. That's fine. I know that it's truth. So borrow that belief from me. But what I will tell you is I think a lot of people, the reason that a lot of people are stuck when they've gone through some form of adversity is because they're not willing to sit in it and sit in the truth for a while. And what I mean by that is a lot of people go through the adversity and they have guilt, resentment, frustration, anger, whatever it might be. And they think that success and inspiration and motivation are on the opposite side of the spectrum. Right? And the reality is, and you can probably attest to this as well, but all of the good emotions are not on the opposite side of the spectrum from the bad emotions. They're actually through.
Come on.
They're through the bad emotions. So, you know, I had one of my guests, Sharon, you know, Sharon Srivatsa, right? So Sharon was on my show. He sold TELUS real estate for $3.4 billion. Okay. And one of the things that he coaches C-level executives in the Forbes 100. He coaches the top people in the world. And he says one of the biggest things that helps them be successful is to realize that fear and anger and guilt and frustration are just the lid to the rest of our life. And it's our job to go sit in them and push through that lid. So I learned this when I lost my best friend. So I mentioned that my best friend committed suicide about 4 or 5 months when into first starting my business. And my buddy AJ, this is a friend of mine I'd known since I was 6 or 8 years old. We played baseball together, played soccer together. He lived down the street from me. He introduced me to my first girlfriend. He joined the Marines. I joined the Air Force. Like, we were inseparable for decades. And after the Marines, he suffered from PTSD, depression, addictive tendencies for over a decade until finally taking his life just 4 years ago. Now, at this point, I was a coach. And I had worked with people through depression, anxiety, suicidal tendencies, PTSD, all of these things. But I couldn't help AJ. It created such a powerful vortex of emotions for me that I completely lost who I was as a person. I lost my identity. I didn't know left from right, up from down. right? And I think about this, like your best friend kills himself.
Yeah.
And you feel nothing but resentment to him for taking himself away from you and his family. I hated him. I literally hated my best friend for killing himself, but I knew it wasn't his fault. So that made me feel guilty about feeling resentment. And then I felt ashamed about feeling guilty and resentful to my best friend. And this cycle went on every single day in my head and just took me deeper and deeper down into depression. And I was lucky enough to have a mentor of mine and lucky enough to be trained in the emotional operating system. What most of us don't understand is we have two operating systems. We have an intellectual operating system and we have an emotional operating system. Most of us are just taught about our intellect, and we're not taught how to handle our emotional operating system. We're taught emotions are weak. We're taught emotions are feminine. Don't show emotions. All of these things from a young age. When the reality is, if you don't allow your emotions, you're going to function as half of a person. And the majority of quote unquote stuckness is us just not moving through emotions. We talked about how do you program the subconscious mind? Well, there's two ways to program the subconscious mind: repetition and emotion. That's it. Those are the two ways you program that 95% of your brain. So if you have a deeply seated emotion like guilt or frustration or anger or resentment, and you're not dealing with it properly, you're not going and sitting in it, which is scary. Is it ever fun to go sit in resentment of your best friend who just killed himself? No. But the word emotion, emote, E to eject, mote to move through. Emotions move through you if you allow them to. If you resist them, they stay within you and they program your subconscious mind. So consciously you go, oh, I'm not resentful of AJ, but it buries into that 95% of your brain and just marinates in resentment and guilt and frustration. And that's how you act moving forward, even though consciously you won't admit it. That's what being stuck is. You're just not willing to be courageous enough to sit in the negative emotions and move through them. And what I found was every time that I went and I sat in negative emotions, the way that I did it, it's something I call fear journaling. I literally grab a notebook, kind of like this, except this is actually an iPad disguised as a notebook. I grab a notebook and I just start writing all the negative shit that I possibly can. Like I go as deep and dark and negative as I can to get all of the emotions out, because I would rather them out of my head, out of my mind, out of my heart and onto that piece of paper so I could throw it away than let it marinate in my subconscious. And I did this every single morning after I lost AJ. And for 30 to 40 minutes, I would sit there crying while I wrote all this negative shit. Fuck you, AJ. Screw you. You're a terrible person for taking yourself away from me and your family and all of it. And I'd be yelling at him in these letters, but I'd get it out.
Huge.
And as I got it out, I could sit up in bed and I'd feel relief. I'd feel weight off my shoulders. And not only that, I would feel inspired to go make a difference. I would feel, okay, now that I got that off, I got to go do something about this. I still have, you can't see it, but I have a painting right next to my desk. Every morning I look at it as I walk into my office, and it's in dark charcoal scraped into this painting, and it's scraped in. It's not drawn in there. It's scraped in with a knife, and it says, "Someone give me a hand." I found this painting as I was going through AJ's stuff after he passed away, and he dated it 2 weeks before he killed himself. Now I have that painting hanging next to my desk to remind me to feel the negative emotions, to feel the loss, to feel the heartache, to feel the sadness, because I know that as I feel that loss and that heartache, on the other side of that is a drive, an inspiration, and an inability to stop living purposefully if I allow myself to go through that crap.
Man, guys, I hope you're being as blessed as I am. I know you are from this episode. And Zander, thank you just for being transparent and vulnerable. And
absolutely, man.
Man, what an amazing story. And here's what I just want to say before we get into a little coaching, and I want to talk about that for a few minutes is, I want to speak to the person right now that might be listening. You might feel hopeless, right? You might feel helpless. You might be out there and you're listening, you tuned in today and you have no idea why you're watching or you tuned in. And I just want to tell you, you're here on purpose. You have a purpose, and whatever the hardship you're facing, me and Zander both believe you can create a breakthrough, that you're like I speak life right now to your emotions, to your mindset, whatever you're dealing with. I just want to challenge you right now. Continue to listen, continue to seek. You will find. reach out to people that care about you. And I hope that story motivates you and inspires you today to also to reach out to somebody, because I think we show up in life so many times and we have no idea what people are going through. Right.
Yep.
Sometimes it's the people that we think have it all together and they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, and all of a sudden it ends up in a suicide or severe depression. So thank you for sharing that, Zander.
Absolutely, dude.
So let's do this real quick, man. I want to just speak for a couple minutes on coaching, right?
Sure.
You're in the coaching industry. I'm in the coaching industry. I believe it's the greatest industry. There's nothing that
damn good industry, man. Damn good industry.
Nothing that fires me up more than helping somebody win in life. And so just give us a quick overview really quick, why you believe so much in this industry, and what you guys really do at High Impact Coaching.
Yeah, I mean, the whole reason that I got into high impact coaching, obviously I started as a life coach, right? And I built my life coaching business, built it to multiple six figures. I think I was at about 40 or 50K a month. And I had all these coaches, life coaches, health coaches, career coaches, relationship coaches reaching out to me because I'd kind of built a network at that point. And they're all like, you just did in like 5 months what I've been trying to do for 5 years, right? And so they started to ask me, they're like, well, can you just show me how to do it? So I was like, sure. Started to show a few people. They got crazy good results. They told more people. They came to me and, kind of started building and growing from there. So, what we realized was, there's so many coaches out there that I truly believe that coaches are kind of the tip of the spear, right? They are the ones that are courageous enough to go after something different, to do something different, to serve humanity. Every coach gets into coaching because they want to serve others. They want to have a bigger impact, but they also want to do it in a way that they can have, the freedom in their life to take care of their family. Now, the big problem is so many coaches have great coaching expertise. They'll learn how to be a great fitness coach or be a good relationship coach or a life coach or whatever it might be. But it takes two forms of expertise to build a coaching business. You have to have the coaching and you have to have the business. And the business actually comes first. You can't coach people unless you do the business to get clients, right? So that was kind of the big problem that I saw for the coaching space was there's so many coaches that were really passionate about what they did. They really are the tip of the spear that is creating change in the world, in the, all the problems we see in the health and wellness space, in the mental space that we're talking about. All of that stuff is, the change is led by coaches. Right. And so I saw this opportunity of like, okay, the more coaches that I can help figure out the business side of things and go full time and make six figures, multiple six figures, seven figures, the bigger of an impact they're going to have, the more people they're going to then go. And that ripple effect just starts to carry forward. So, I always tell people, if I could help 1% of this world's population live more from a place of purpose and less from a place of fear, like we actually have a shot at solving a majority of this world's problems. Now, I don't know if I can do that all alone, but I do know, like you were talking about, I am confident I can do it with the help of other people. And if I get more people to live purposefully, 100% I can get to 1% of this world's population, right? And so that's why we started doing it, and why, to me, the coaching industry is so amazing. But also the big problem is, I think it was like Glassdoor did a study, and it was something like 85 to 90% of coaches will never make it full time. And it's not because they're not great coaches. It's because they never learn the business side of things. Right. And so that was the big problem that I saw, and why we started to focus there and really helping people learn the business side of stuff so they can help more people, but have the freedom and flexibility they love. So they can, like you and I were talking at the beginning of the show, like, yeah, make great money, but do it doing something purposeful and intentional and changing the world while you do it.
It's huge. There's nothing like it. And I think the thing I respect about you, obviously you're doing it, right? You're not just trying to coach something you haven't done, but also doing it. I see coaches all the time, man. And it really does, drive me crazy. They've done it 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and they're still trying to teach it. I always tell people, look for a coach that's done it, but is doing it. And I think I think it's one of the things that really has separated you in this industry. And I think it's one of the things that makes you so unique is the fact that you are still doing it. You're still building a business. You're still, doing what you love to do. You're not only teaching it, but you're absolutely doing it as well, which I think is a very, very, very big thing. And so.
Heyo.
Oh my gosh, we're back.
Too much sexiness for one episode.
That's all it was, man. So let's go here really quick, man. Let's talk about You Don't Learn in College. That's your new book coming out. What is it about? Why do you think it's important? Because we're talking about a lot of the stuff you don't learn in college today that could radically change your business and your life. And I was celebrating you right before we got broken up about how I love that you're not just a coach that did it, but you're a coach that's still doing it, right?
Yeah.
You're building your own coaching business right now. You're staying up to date with what the latest and greatest is when it comes to building a business, to marketing, to all the fun stuff going on in our world. So I commend you for that. One of the guys that are still doing it, not just talking about it. So what about the stuff you don't learn in college, the issue you don't learn in college, man? What's about the book coming out? Talk to us about what that means.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And before I dig into that, I think one thing that I just want to echo about what you just said too, right, is like, when we're talking about like purpose, right? I think a lot of, because we keep mentioning the word purpose. One thing that I do want everybody to understand is when you think of purpose, I don't want you to think of an end goal.
Huge.
Right. I talk about this in my TED talk, but purpose is not an end goal. Purpose is a decision made in every moment of every day, of every week, of every month, of every year that you are alive, right? Because our lives are just a series of decisions. Every decision can send you down a different path. Right. And so, I tell this to people because every moment that we choose, we're either choosing fear or purpose, or we're choosing to be courageous, or we're choosing to give in is essentially a great way to think about it. And so, when you mention, like I continue to live it, it's like, well, yeah, I haven't reached the end goal because there is no end goal. Living purposefully is something you do every single moment of every day. And I want to remind people of that. And if you really start to embody that, like, it becomes a lot more fun. Like, do I work my ass off? Yeah, I work my ass off. I work hard. Growth is never fun. Growth hurts. Growth is uncomfortable, right? But if I know deep down that I am being purposeful and intentional, and I start to enjoy the process of growth, right, then I'm going to have a ton of fun, and I'm going to be purposeful all the time. And I'm going to be willing to put in the work every single day. Right. And so, it's just a good reminder for people that purpose is not an end state. Purpose is a choice you make every moment of every day. And that's really what it means to be on purpose. Right. It's not an end state for you. So just wanted to share that real quickly.
So powerful, man. So powerful. I couldn't agree more. I think this episode's just amazing. I mean, we could go so many different angles and talk about so many great things. So I appreciate you sharing that and being led, man.
Yeah.
Huge.
And so for shit you don't learn in college, really this, obviously I went to college and I spent a lot of money in college. And I think there's a lot of people who have gone to college and felt like maybe it did not get them the result that they really wanted. Right. And it really took, for me, it took, now what seems like a lifetime of personal development, self-development to really learn the stuff that really mattered. Right. And, we've all been led down the path of like, pay the money, go into debt, go to college, get a career, have a great stable life, have 2.5 kids, the white picket fence, the mortgage, all that sort of stuff. Right. And I think more and more of us are realizing that that's not fulfilled. And in the book, I talk about the current education system and how it's designed to create. It's actually, if you go back to, as far as Greco-Roman times, the education system originally developed in Greco-Roman times by like Plato and Socrates was actually designed to help people become individually fulfilled and individual thinkers and success. And it was designed around something called the trivium. And I talk about this in the book. I talk about this on the podcast, but it built the education system around three things: the ability to learn and teach on your own, the ability to reason and logic on your own, and the ability to critically think and question. And they said that's what created an individual contributing member of society. Wow. Now you have Roman, the imperialistic Roman times come in, and what happens in imperial Rome? Well, we have militaristic expansion. Well, what creates a really shitty soldier? Someone who learns on their own, someone who reasons and logics on their own, and someone who critically questions everything they're told. So the Roman era did away with this whole method of education, which has now continued itself all the way into the industrial era in Western society. And if you think of capitalism, and don't get me wrong, I love capitalism, it's great. But if you think of our education system now, it's the same thing. It's a form of economic expansionism, right? And we're building, our education system is now designed to build worker ants or worker bees within these bigger, quote unquote, economic armies or corporations. Well, good for the growth of the corporation overall. And it's led to amazing technological advancements in the last 100 years. But also look at the levels of anxiety, depression, suicide, all of these things that have continuously gone up decade after decade. It's as a result of the same education system, right? So I talk about this in depth in the book and basically explain what we need to do instead to help people get clarity around how they work, how their brain works. You know, a lot of the stuff we talked about today, how their brain works, how to become an optimal functioning person and leverage that subconscious mind, your emotional operating system. I talk about how to get clarity around your true purpose, your true passions, the directions you need to go in life. I talk about how to make all the things we talked about, overcoming your fears, overcoming limiting beliefs, making better decisions, all the tactical skills to build a business, to make more money, to have more freedom. All of those things are detailed in this, 250 to 300 pages of, everything that I've learned over the last 10 to 15 years. So,
man, super stoked for you. Is this your first book?
This is my first book that I've done on my own. My first book that I've done on my own. Yes.
I love it. So when's it going to be released?
Yeah, so we'll be coming out. The book will be launched officially. We're going to be doing a pre-launch August 23rd. So if you want to if you want to opt in for that pre-launch, we have that up right now at sydlicbook.com. So SYDLIC, that stands for shit you don't learn in college, in case you're wondering. So SYDLICbook.com. You can actually opt in to be notified when the launch starts. August 23rd. So August 23rd through October 19th, we're going to be doing a pre-launch, and everybody who gets the book, we're going to be, number one, we're going to be getting 1 year of e-learning to an impoverished kid in India. And number two, we're going to be giving you over $3,000 in other programs and worksheets to help you through a lot of the shit you don't learn in college process as well. So everybody that gets the book during that 2-month period, you're going to be getting a lot of extra stuff.
And we're going to be helping other people, kids.
And you're going to be helping a lot of other people. Yep.
Beautiful, man. I love it. Zander, what if somebody's interested in HIC or coaching, high impact coaching? Where can they find you?
They can go to ZanderFryer.com, ZanderFryer.com. Check us out there. Feel free to check me out on Instagram as well. It's just at Zander Fryer. But those are probably the two best places to check us out if you're a coach and you're interested in more.
I love it, man. So I want to ask you this, and then I want to close the show. But in closing, win all day, right? I created this mantra when I was down and out, and it was me reconditioning my subconscious mind, right? I had to start to take on a new identity. I start to create a new story, and I built it around, it's not about winning and losing. I built it around, JC, you got to go in every day thinking you were born a winner. You got to create this new identity that you can win, you will win, you must win. All day was about believing that all things had to happen, all things work together for good, and that all things are possible. And it just started to stick, and it became a mantra and a movement. And we've been blessed to, serve so many people around the globe with that mantra. And I want to ask you this, because I believe you win by stacking wins, right? It's the law of winning, the law of compounding, old school Darren Hardy's book. I'll never forget when I read it, right? But what are some things that Zander Fryer does on a daily basis that are consistent, that are rituals or things that you do that set you up to win, that you could lay your head on the pillow at night and say, hey, I'm stacking wins. Man, winning's built on winning. What are some of your daily rituals in life or business that you say physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationship-wise, financially, that you could just say, hey, here, borrow some of my rituals. They work for me, guys. Use them if you want. Give us some of those practical things that you do to set yourself up to win and win all day.
Yeah, well, one thing that I was going to say is I actually do something very similar to your creed. I call it my I ams. One of my mentors first told me, he said, the most powerful language in the world is whatever comes after the two words I am.
Huge.
Right. And so I'll tell you, it's basically my creed. Yeah. So I have it written on a little piece of note paper, and it's in my book that sits on my nightstand. So I read it every night before I go to bed, and I read it first thing in the morning. And it says, I am a leader. I am a warrior. I am strong, I have faith, and I live my life from a place of love, growth, and purposeful action. And I've been reading that for the last 5 years. Now, I don't need to read it anymore because it's deeply buried in my brain. But I know that if I stop reading it, something else will start to bury itself in its place. So I keep reading it to make sure that it stays buried in my brain, and so that I make sure I show up like a leader. I show up strong. I show up like I have faith, and I show up like I'm ready to live my life from a place of love, growth, and purposeful action. So that's something that I do. And we tell a lot of our clients to do. I call them my I ams. But it literally programs your identity as a person. Now, your identities, you have core beliefs and identities that will program all of your other beliefs. So if you start there, everything else will start to fall into place. So that's one thing. I think another thing, and this sounds so simple, and I'm sure people have heard this over and over again, but I haven't missed waking up to my alarm clock in 4 years. So everybody's heard like, don't hit snooze, right? But nobody really understands how important it is until you really see what happens when you just actually never hit snooze. Now, I'm not saying you have to wake up at 4 a.m. I wake up at 4 a.m. You don't have to do that. If your alarm is set for 8, that's fine. Just wake up to the alarm. And the reason that I'm telling you this, you talked about, building your wins and building confidence, right? Well, if the first thing you do the night before you go to bed, you say, oh, JC, I'm going to wake up at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Right. And then that alarm comes around and you're tired and groggy and you go, oh man, how about 7:30? And you hit snooze, right? You just started your day with a loss.
Huge, man. You
just started your day with a loss. The rest of that day, you're already behind score. Right. And so, I legitimately, when I tell this to our clients, they're like, what? Like, you seriously haven't hit snooze? I'm like, yeah, like it would be harder for me now to hit snooze than to not hit snooze, because it's just who I am as a person. Right. I always tell people, you were talking about Darren Hardy and the compound effect, right? Well, habits are not hard. Habits are hard for a short period of time.
That's it.
And then they become habit. And then it's really, really like, it's so easy for me to wake up to my alarm every morning because it's habit, right? Like, I could have slept 4 hours and I could be tired and groggy, but as soon as that thing goes up, I just wake up delirious and I get out of bed. I don't think about it because it just happens now, right? Same thing with like going to the gym. Like, I bet it would be harder for you to not go to the gym on a day that you normally go to the gym than it is to go to the gym, because it's just a lifestyle for you now. So, I tell people, if you're going to start with one thing or maybe two things, I guess, do the creed that JC's given you, number one. And then number two, wake up to your alarm. If you build yourself with one win every single day at the very beginning of your day, you're going to start to win more throughout the day.
Man, it's so huge, man. And in this, like, I wrote this during the Win All Day playbook, this leather-bound blueprint. I wrote it during COVID because there were so many people that wanted coaching. They either couldn't afford it. I couldn't coach everybody. And I was like, you know what? I don't have something for that person. So it's a 90-day playbook on how to live, with passion, on purpose, and win in life. But that's part of the stuff I talk in there, how you stack wins and, how you develop habits. And like, for me, like you mentioned earlier, not hitting snooze, getting up when I say I'm going to get up, right? Going to the gym or working out, even moving. It's non-negotiables, right? And I think so many times we give ourselves out, right? And we start to negotiate with our goals and our dreams. And it just is, it's a mental.
Well, as soon as that becomes negotiable, everything else in your life is negotiable, right? I always tell people, it's like, we'll have clients that tell us, they're like, Zander, like, I want to have a 40K a month coaching business, right? And my first question is, how many times have you hit snooze in the last month?
It's huge, bro.
And if the answer is more than one, right? Right? Then I have to remind them, like, how are you going to build a 40K a month coaching business when you can't even wake up to your alarm?
It's huge.
How are you going to change the world when you lie to yourself every night when you're going to sleep and you don't wake up for your alarm in the morning? You're telling your subconscious, that same subconscious that dictates all of your actions, you're telling your subconscious, hey, I'm a liar. So when I say that I want to go achieve these goals, just remind me that I'm lying to you and that I can't actually do it. That's where all that self-doubt comes from.
Man, it's so powerful. And here's the funny thing, like, you're such a coach. Like, if people are listening or watching and they know me, it's very similar on a podcast or a show. Like, you always want to throw one more thing in. You always want to coach a little more. People always say,
we keep going, by the way. We can keep going. I
asked you that question, but you had to go there. Hold on, one more thing.
Yep.
It's just the coach inside you, and it's a passion. You're so passionate about this because it's your purpose to help somebody on their side, even on somebody else's podcast, to help somebody win. It's inside you. You can't turn it off. So Zander, man, here's what I want to do. I'm going to close with two things. I first want to give you the opportunity. Is there anything we missed today? Any closing thoughts for the Win All Day family that you say, I didn't get that in, but here's my closing thoughts for the person on the other side, listener or watching today?
Do we have another couple hours? We can dig in.
We got about 2 hours. So.
No, I think we covered some good stuff. I think we covered a lot. I'd say obviously, like, the biggest thing that I'd say is just keep listening to this show. Like, keep listening to this show, bombard your subconscious with everything that you can to make sure that you're making the purposeful, courageous decisions.
I love it, man. That's Zander Fryer, guys. High impact coaching. The book is going to be released very soon. Get on the pre-orders. And I'm just super stoked, honored by our friendship, blessed by you as a coach, and just an individual and a friend in my life that I get to call a friend. And Zander, we talked about the winning confession, the creed. We talked about the I am statement, how whatever you put after that, you bring life to. I always like to end every show with the I am statement. I would love for you just to tell everybody who you are. I am Zander Fryer. I am a winner, and I will win and win all day, baby. Can we do that?
Sure. Can you say it one more time?
Yeah, I am Zander Fryer. I am a winner. I will win and win all day.
I am Zander Fryer. I am a winner. I will win and win all day, baby.
Yeah. Guys, this is Coach JC. Who loves you? I love you. I want to remind you one last time, you were born a winner, so go win and win all day, and we'll see you in the next episode.